Hey, good morning. This is Austin with Counterculture Farms. So this morning we're going to be talking about how to lease or how to buy land. Of course, you know how to buy land. You come up with the money for it and do it. But a lot of people have asked me, how do you get started? You got cows and goats and sheep and all these things that cost money. Well, if you're starting at ground zero, you have no land and no animals. How do you get in? Well, let's cover a little bit of that. One, by far, the cheapest animals to get into are the small ruminants, not the cows. The sheep and goats and other small animals. Depending on where you live, you could try out different things, but that's the normal thing that I see is sheep and goats. Um, the cows, let's say you got $1,000 in one head. The sheep, you'd have $200 in one head, so you could have 5 sheep for the same price as one cow. Also, for the land, this is a big deal most people don't think about. On 1 acre, I couldn't even support one cow where I live. The ratio is roughly 1 cow to 2 acres. People do more than that, but that's the ratio. Sheep, 3 sheep to 1 acre. Big difference. So I can have 6 sheep on the same amount of land as I can with one cow. Well, that's 6 babies. If I get roughly 100 to 200 a baby, you see the math on it. And I get it that year. So they're born in the spring, done in the fall. You can take them to the sale barn or you can market them locally. Well, that's why I tell people a lot when they're just getting started is to start with small ruminants. Another reason is because cows kick a whole lot harder than a sheep does. They're a lot bigger animal, and if you don't know what you're doing, you can get hurt real quick. What are you doing, bud? The sheep, hey, watch out, back up. He might come say hi. The sheep, there's a lot better learning curve, right? So if one gets sick and you lose that sheep, you're only out $200. If a cow gets sick and dies, you're out that 1,000 or whatever you paid for her. Maybe you paid less, but still more than what you'd have paid for that sheep. So, learning curve, safety. Let's say you have 10 or 20 sheep in the pens and you're needing to run them through to put tags in their ears and maybe deworm them or whatever else that you do. You can vaccinate or other things. I don't do that. I don't recommend it for my situation, but if you're buying animals from the sale barn and there's a lot of different diseases there, then yeah, it might be safe to do that. That's your call. That's another talk. Anyways, in the pens, you have these 10 or 20 sheep. You could pick one up and flip it over versus a cow. You cannot flip that dude over. He's going to flip you over if you happen to have a crazy one. Or you don't know what you're doing and you spook the animal because you've never been around them. So what I recommend really is if you just have to get into it right now, go buy you some small ruminants. But if you have the time, go learn from a neighbor or go internship or apprentice on a farm that's doing it the way you want to. Either they have sheep and that's what you want to do, or they have sheep, cows, and goats. They have all the animals or some of the animals. Just whatever livestock you're really interested in, go find a place that's doing it right. For me, I'm rotating my animals. I'm doing a specific mineral program, breeding program, different things. Some people just have cows out on, let's say, 50 acres. They just have cows out in the same pasture all year long. So that's why I'd say is that you need to either learn from a neighbor or go an internship or apprentice. You can also just jump into it. I did that with some background, but I lost out a whole bunch of money that I didn't have to lose on because I learned the hard way. Well, you could go and learn someone else's mistake on their dime, and they're more than willing to share with you. I am. Not everyone is, but a lot of farmers are more than willing to talk with you about their failures and their successes. That's why farmers are the salt of the earth, all right? So next, how to lease or how to buy. If I owned the land and let's say I had 50 acres out here and you came up and you said, hey, I see you don't have anything on that. You want to put cows on it or sheep or goats or whatever. Okay, well, how many do you have? How many you want? Well, I don't have any yet. Well, so how are you? Well, you're going to buy some to put out there. Okay. Well, you've never done this before. What do you mean you've never? So I'm going to trust you with the health of my land, doing something that you've never done before, knowing that you can completely jack up my land in just really a few days, but a season or over a year or a couple years. You can really mess up the soil, jack it up, get the weeds out of control. You can go spray it with poisons, which I wouldn't want you to do. There's all kinds of things that you could do, but one of the bigger things I think of is if you go do that and you lease it, let's say it's 50 acres and you put 10 or 20 cows on it, how much hay are you going to have to use to get through the first winter? How are you going to get through the first winter? If you don't know the answer to that question, I would say you might want to hold off a few more days before you buy your animals. I had one guy come in internship for me, I don't know, a few months ago. He didn't know the answer to that question. He stuck around for a few days and then thought he wanted to go learn on his own piece of land, and that's fine. He's able to do that, but he was here learning on my dime, on my loss, on my time. He invested his time, I invested mine, and when he screwed up, it was on me. So instead of his land, his animals, and if one gets sick and dies, he had never messed with animals. So I guess I'm saying if you're at that point, I'd really encourage you to do some learning before you just jumped right in. But so if you're ready and you're saying, well, I'm going to buy some animals and go lease some land, well, Greg Judy makes it really, really simple sounding that you can just lease land. It's all over the place. And if you asked him, I'm sure he'd say, it's really not that simple. But leasing land is one of the harder things to do. Excuse me. Excuse me. Leasing land is one of the harder things to do. People don't trust others. They've been jaded in the past. Someone didn't take care of their land right. For some reason, they have it in their head they don't want to lease their land. I think it's because people didn't take care of their land the right way, and here it is now. They're having that bad taste in their mouth and going, well, I remember last time this happened, and he put 100 cows on 10 acres, and it looked like a feedlot out there. And anyways, whatever the reason, there's a lot of people. I did this for years. Anytime I saw a field that was tall grass and no cows in it, and I knew it wasn't being cut for hay, I stopped and asked. I knocked on front doors and, hey, is anybody using this? And I got all the answers, all kinds of different answers, and I got 0 leases. It ended up that a friend of mine knew I was really needing some land, and he leased me a pasture of his that I've been renovating and regenerating the land. It was let go. Blackberry briars were taking over the whole thing, and that was a huge blessing for me. But that doesn't happen often. So if you know somebody, you got a neighbor, really it'd be best for somebody that you know. They're going to let you at least have a conversation about it. Some people slam the door in your face and tell you to get off their property. So if you have the means, I like the buying the land thing because you're investing. If you're doing what I'm doing, you're really working hard to regenerate the soil. If you lease it, you can have it ripped out from under you in one day. It doesn't matter if you have paperwork signed or if it's a handshake agreement. Get paperwork signed, get a lease agreement, sign it up, whatever it is, because I like the handshake deal because I think we're all country boys and girls and men and women, and a handshake is your oath. It is for me. It ain't for anybody else. It ain't for everybody else. It is for a lot of people. Happened to me a year or two ago. Had a piece of property just yanked out from under me. Basically, hey, good to hear from you. We need your cows off tomorrow. I said, hold up, what? I was regenerating this property. High stock density, mob grazing, moving my animals. unrolling hay, investing in their land, trying to build the soil back. Well, I said, they're already off. I have them rotating. You know that. I moved them onto my place, and but I'm going to be back there like next week. They've been off for like a month or so, and I'm coming back to hit all the crop that's grown back up. Needless to say, I got kicked off, and it wasn't a good situation. Started feeding hay when I didn't need to be because I got a lease yanked out from under me, and just a big issue from a handshake agreement that I thought was going to work out great. So that to say, sign a lease for your protection, really. Let's see, next, buying land. Like I was saying, I like to buy land. Like that gives you, so for the next 10 years, I'm working on it, regenerating it, making it better, turning it from here, land wants to turn into forest. So keeping that from happening and making it a good hay field or a grass pasture for cows, that takes a lot of work. So by you owning it, you're making it better every single year. Whereas if you lease, you may only lease for two years or 5 years or 10, or 10 is a long lease, really. Some people get it, but I don't. Normally it's shorter. And you can always extend it. You can sign something that says, like at the end, give me the first chance to renew this before you give the option to someone else. Let's see. Buying the land, though, it's an expensive option. There's not a lot of land that's in good condition that is priced for cattle operations. So let's say on the cheap end, you get land for $5,000 an acre. How many cows is it going to take you to actually make the profit back? So at sale barn prices, you're getting $500 to $1,000 for that cow. Sometimes less, sometimes a hair more, but you're in that ballpark. So let's say that you have, let's make this real easy, 10 acres, and we put 5 cows on it. So your investment is $50,000. That's what you bought that land for, and you probably spent more. But let's say $50,000, 10 cows, 5 cows, on 10 acres. So that's 1 head to 2 acres. Each of those cows cost you $1,000. So now you're in at $55,000. It's going to take you 1 year. Let's say they're all bred. At the end of that first year, at 9 months, you have a calf hit the ground. Within 3 to 6 months, you sell that at the sale barn. What do you get for those calves? Jack. The system's not set up for small farmers. So you sell at the sale barn, you are going to feel like you get stole from for those calves. But let's just say you get an okay price for, let's call it average at $500 a head for 5 calves. You're at $2,500. Well, how much did it take you to raise those? If you had to feed hay that winter, you had $50 in each bale of hay. Let's say it cost you $500. That you fed 10 bales. Okay, so you take off that, now you're at $2,000. What about your time and effort and everything else? You get into it, you start realizing, all the costs going down, the diesel, everything. How are you going to make back that $55,000 that you have invested for the cows and the land? That's the real negative with buying the land. But if you have the money to do it, land is an amazing investment. Much better than a lot of the investments that we see nowadays. I'm not a big fan of the stock market, but that's because I like seeing cows on pasture and going, there's my investment right there. I'm different than a lot of other people. But so there's some of the pros and cons. I'd say that really hits most of it. Like I said, key points to kind of throw at you would be learn from a farmer that's doing it the way you want to do it. If they're doing chemical agriculture and they're spraying weeds and doing all that, and that's what you want to do, learn from them. If you want to do it beyond organically, you want to do rotational grazing and you want to really heal the soil and build it back, and you want your land to be better now than it is, better in 10 years than it is right now, then go learn from someone like me who's doing that. There's tons of us out there. Go learn from them. Then next, small ruminants is where I'd start. I'd start with sheep Goats are a pain in the ass to keep in a fence. Sheep, you can train them to stay behind one hot wire just like the cows. Now it takes a little bit of time. Start with a few wires at first, then get down to one, but you can do it. They're way easier to keep in a fence though. That's the point. They're way easier and more parasite resistant than goats in my dealings. So learn from a farmer, small ruminants, lease land if possible. If you have a neighbor that is willing to help you get into it, even if he's only got a few acres that he wants to let you use, 4 or 5 acres, you can start with 10 sheep on that easily, and they'd have more than enough to eat. So, and that all depends on where you are. Like I said, here it's about 1 cow to 2 acres. Some places it's 1 cow to 10 or 20 acres. That's dry land. We're really wet here. So you got to take that in consideration. All you have to do is ask somebody who has cows what the stock density is for that area. Lastly, I'd say buy land if you have the means. Don't expect to make your money back on it with livestock. And that's just as simple as it gets. If you want to market it differently and you want to do grass-fed and finished and do organic practices and different things like that, you can make a little bit more money. You can buy better stock and get into breeding, but it takes years to establish something that's worth more money to people. Breeding stock. These big ranches that are selling breeding stock, they didn't buy all this, start selling next year, and everyone flocked to them. It took them years, it took them decades to get the stock that everyone was looking for, that they're now going to buy bulls and replacement cows and heifers and all that. So that's a lot. I hope that all made sense, and I get questions about this all the time, so I figured I'd make an in-depth video about it. So like, comment, subscribe. Let me know down in the bottom what else you want to learn about, if this answered all your questions or if you want more. And yeah, have a good day. Counterculture.